Hello everybody, this is Eric Novice. In this video, I'm going to talk about something that's very interesting and something that very few people know. And I like to, as you see in the title of the video, this is known as UBF's History Chapter 0. So let me read this part. Missionary Reports by Sarah Berry from 1956 to 1957. Oh, sorry. Missionary Reports by Sarah Berry from 1956 to 1974. Sarah Berry, co-founder and current and former director of UBF, University Bible Fellowship, meanwhile called Reverend Mother Berry by its members, and obviously joined it, was an American missionary of the South Presbyterian Church in the 1950s. Being such, she was obliged to send regular reports to her mother organization. She did this for about 20 years, though it can be observed how this associated more and more from her own church and built up her own organization together with the founder, Wu Samuel Lee, the late Dr. Lee, which she's also known as, until she finally completely detached from the church. Here's a complete list of her MCD letters, which were archived of the Presbyterian Church but so far unknown to UBF members. So MCD stands for Missionary Correspondence Department. So she recently was part of the Presbyterian Board of Mississippi, because that's her home state. So what she would do was, because she was from Presbyterian Church, she was a missionary sent out by the Presbyterian Church, and so she was obliged to report on what's going on. And as my friend, this is from archive, by the way. My friend from Germany has noted that she did this for 20 years, from like 56 to 1904, for about 20 years. So what's very interesting about these mission reports is that it shows an interesting history, a chapter 0, so to speak, about University Bible Fellowship. So you may get the impression that Miss Sarah Berry first went to Korea, that the goal was to evangelize students in one-to-one Bible studies. So you may have this idea, or you were told that that's the impression, or the impression that this was God's direction from the get-go. This is not true at all, actually. So in the older reports, as you'll see, as I go over each, I'll make videos of each report. There were 21, not including this article. So Sarah Berry had a purpose but no real goal. Meaning, like, her goal was to evangelize Korea, but she had no set direction. So in the beginning, when she first went to Korea, she went to different homes, she went to different hospitals. Just basically, she was kind of all over the place as far as like direction wise. She would pass out pamphlets, she would go door to door preaching to Korean citizens, and she went to the hospital where she did something like similar to Mother Teresa. She would go to the hospital and preaching to people as well. Right. It wasn't until like around late 1961, early 1962, when she meets the founder of UBF, the late Dr. Lee. That's when they start focusing on the students. But if you see from their early reports, what I'll point out to you, she did not focus on the students right away. And also, something that I will mention more detail in the future video is that she never ever states that this was God's direction to evangelize. She's never said that. She's never even said, "Oh, this was the Holy Spirit guiding her." She's never claimed that either. It's something to keep in mind, something to note of. There was even one report, I don't remember which one at the top of my head, where she says that she was really concerned on whether this was the right direction to go to or not. Very interesting, right? So I'm not going to read all this. I'll let you guys read it. So let me read this paragraph. Similar to the subsequent self-representations of UBF, Sarah Perry's reports are also very one-sided, self-glorifying and glossed over, lacking any self-criticism, and characterized by concealment or falsification of essential backgrounds, events, and developments in the history of the organization. Anyway, these historical letters probably will help to understand the history of development of UBF better than subsequent, even more forged versions of the history of UBF written by Sarah Berry or the founder. So yes, like my friend's saying, they are very one-sided. They're self-glorifying. They make it seem like everything's all good, and the struggles they have were basically out of control or persecution, and that anything that goes wrong is never their fault. Sounds kind of familiar. And the rest of this, he's talking about more about the reports and something he mentions before in the past, like how Lee taking control. Well, it wasn't until by the 70s. It wasn't until by the 70s that's when the late Dr. Lee took full control of UBF, and at that point he became the undisputed leader. Alright, let me read this one as well, because this is also important. Interesting is also clear. There's also a clearly visible focus on studying the book of Genesis, the calling Abraham being interpreted as calling for co-working in the UBF to the students. In the report of November 1970, Sarah Berry even remarks that by 1-to-1 Genesis Bible study, many students accepted Jesus as Savior and Lord. How deeply can somebody accept Jesus who has only studied an Old Testament book where the name Jesus is even mentioned? Older UBF quote-unquote missionaries report that though in the beginning, besides Genesis, also some chapters from John's Gospel were studied, but those were only chapters towards calling, not the actual Gospel of the Cross. The New Testament epistles also weren't read for a very long time UBF, and even now they don't read all the epistles. Since the interpretation and application of the sorry about that. Since the interpretation and application of the gospel by the epistles contradicts the idea of UBF in too many aspects. There are some epistles such as Colossians, 2 Corinthians, and there's a reason why UBF does not go over certain books of the Bible, because they know that it would just, because then if they do go over such books like that, all UBF's theology and doctrine would just fall apart. It is also remarkable that neither Sarah Berry nor Lee ever mentioned their own conversion story and the playing a part and helping other people in this. There's only a kind of calling story of Lee. These two servants of God make others believe they have simply fallen from heaven, fully qualified with any kind of training that other members so desperately need, according to their opinion. And this is true even to this day. They never really talk about how the founders were converted to God, how they came to accept Jesus. Because even in the history of UBF videos they showed at the international conference last year, August 2018, they talk about their history background, but never about how they converted. That's something to keep in mind. They never have done that, even to this day. So yes, and just like my friend mentions this, there's a reason why they only focus on Genesis and John, because they never get to the actual gospel of the cross. They just talk about towards calling and just doing works, which they don't call works. They just doing what God tells them to do, which is really works in this. Which just works in a subtle disguise for UBF. That's why if you read the beginning of John's Gospel, it's about calling, not so much the Gospel itself. Because if UBF were to actually talk about the actual Gospel of the Cross, then because they know deep inside that if they were to do that, students would not stick around. They would just get up and walk away. Wait, and the student will realize, like, why should I continue, why should I continue this Bible study if I've heard the gospel? You see what I'm saying? And I'll read this last part. Alright. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna read probably half of this paragraph. So the missionary letter of November 1962, by the way, declares that UBF was officially founded by 9 students on November 24th, 1962, whereas UBF always states 1961 to be the year of foundation. I don't know why that's the case. I guess they have this obsession with numbers, I believe. But I don't know why they state it as 1961 instead of 1962. The above missionary letters of Sarberry contain many things which cannot be found in subsequent official reports anymore. After Lee apparently finally have taken over the wheel from her during her vacation in the U.S. 1964-65, some orientation crisis can be observed in her letter of April 1965 too. So this is a part where Sarberry came to doubts as to whether this was God's direction or not, but later accepted her role as the secretary of Lee and the Reverend Mother of the organization. Since that vacation year, she also started to write her Christian name with an H at the end, as in the English Bible, apparently identifying herself with the biblical Sarah in Genesis. So when she wrote the early reports, her actual name is spelled S-A-R-A. There was no H in her name. She only started writing H later on. That's another bonus fact. So what happened after the founder died? There was actually a succession crisis. Until Sarberry became leader in 2004, and then 2 years later, Sheng Sun Jung, also known as John G, became the leader of UBF. For a few years, and then from then on, UBF would have the general elections, where they have a elected general director. Which, by the way, I'll talk about more in another video, but the truth about the general elections is that it's just a facade to make UBF look democratic on the outside. Like in normal church, but in actuality, it's always the same people in charge of UBF since the way beginning. Alright, so here's a transcript of some of the reports. This is from my friend's website. Look in the original. Ta-da! Right. This is something you've probably never seen before. And same thing here. Transcript. Original. But don't worry, I'll do a video on each report all the way into 1974. Until they broke off from the Presbyterian Church. Also, I've taken the liberty of doing a list compilation. Each report. Also put commentary on each one. But like I said, I'll do a video on each one, so they're complete. So I'll put the link. Don't worry, I'll put all the links in the description below. Okay. There, and then transcript. Ta-da! I put my commentary in the end. Okay. So also, if you go to the UB Friends Facebook page, of course, it says photos. And then go to where it says see all. Also took the liberty of putting all the images of Sarberry's secret mission reports on the Facebook page as well. Like I say, I'll put all the links in the description below, so you can take a look at them. But as you see, they're not very organized. But if you want to know which is which, I made a list compilation. I put them in order, all the way to the last one. And one last thing I want to note is that if you type in Presbyterian Missionary Board, you should look at information center Barry, you will not find anything on it. Because the Sarah broke off from, because UBF broke off from the Presbyterian Church back in 1975. So if anyone tells you that UBF is part of the Presbyterian Church in some way, shape, they are lying to you or are not well informed about the history of UBF, because this is not the case. Because they broke off from the Presbyterian Church a long time ago. Okay? And that is all for this video. Sorry. So, right? I'll put a link to all this stuff down in the section in the description below. And until next time.